Okay, and I bet you guys can hear my dog right now. Sorry. Uh, okay, our special guests, I'm so excited, are from two different districts and kind of far parts of the country, and two of the districts that are so dear to my heart. One of them is Chippewa Valley in Michigan, Chippewa Valley School District in Michigan, and the principal is Frank Bellamo. Frank Bellamo is not only a principal, but he's also an author of a children's book that you can get, and we're going to tell you the name of it here in just a minute. But Frank has just been principal extraordinaire. I've posted pictures of Frank before in his cart. Frank doesn't stay in his office pretty much during the school day. He's out and about. He is on the floor with kids, making sure they're doing what they need to. And the staff just has such high regard for Frank. And so we'll ask Frank a few questions regarding how he's done that here. And then I have Regina Exley with me and Stephanie Burns with us. They are from Davis School District in Farmington, Utah. And again, this is a huge district, about what's huge to me, 77,000 students, and they have done so much work towards literacy. And Regina and Stephanie are quite the pair. Stephanie is the first person, the first instructional coach we've had join us. And there's a really specific reason for that. And you'll find out about Stephanie and Regina's journey as we go along. So I think that's it. Angie, anything else you'd like to say before we get going?
No, ma'am. I think that's it. I think you covered it. I'll go ahead and start sharing the slides for you to present.
And just so you know, Angie and I both have a small heart attack when we have to go to share. It was a fiasco for me the first time, and Angie doesn't like doing it either. But there we go. And can you put there? Thank you, Angie.
Welcome.
And as Angie said, this is our third part. You know, the book took a little longer for everyone to receive. And so we think by now you have received the book if you've ordered it. This series, what we're going to talk about is in chapter 8, all about collaboration. So if you do have the book, you'll find out that many of the things we reference are in chapter 8. Okay, Angie. So we've started each series with research on principles. And for those of you who know me, this will be my dying scream. But I love this one. For a school as a whole, the effectiveness of the principal is more important than the effectiveness of a single teacher's. And here's why. Principals affect all 483 students. That's a typical size of a building, the average size of a elementary school building in our country. And teachers affect 21 students. But as we've talked about, the effect size of a principal is contributes an additional 3 months every year to a student's education. So again, I can't say this enough, and we've underestimated in this country how absolutely critical a principal is in raising reading achievement. Go ahead, Angie. Um, because here's what I believe: no one single teacher nor one single principal can get all students to 100% grade level, but a collective group of teachers and a principal can. Go ahead, Angie. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is PLCs. And here's what goes on. Many schools think we do collaborate. We have a PLC, we collaborate, and that is a form of collaboration. But if your scores aren't moving, then collaboration is being focused on the wrong thing. And concentrating or focusing or collaborating on the wrong work is a waste of teacher time. If it isn't moving the dial on raising reading achievement, then all it is doing is prolonging students not reading at grade level. Go ahead, Angie. So in the book, in chapter 8, we identify what I call the 4 T's of collaboration. They're teams, trust, targets, and time. We're going to hone in on 2 of them today, and that's teams and trust. Targets are really goals, and we talked a little bit about goals last week. And just so you know, in Chapter 8, there is a goal setting worksheet that you can use for each grade level. And the other T of collaboration is about time. And time is about having, number one, a good schedule. And as we talked about last time, there is an example of a good schedule in the book. But it's also about making sure teachers have time to collaborate. But the people we have with us today are such premier examples of good teams and examples of trust that we really wanted to hone in on those 2 examples of collaboration. Go ahead, Angie. So here's what I'd like you to do just briefly. And if you can, we'll have you put it in the chat. But teams are also committees. And I'd like you to think of the number of committees that you often see going on in your buildings. Just take 30 seconds, think about that, and put it in the chat. How many committees do you have going on in your school? I'll tell you as you're thinking that I often ask that question during professional development, and I've gotten double digits that people write down, oh, 15, 20, there's a 12. That's pretty typical. Regina says 4, which is what we love, but that's not so typical. Oh, Jody, you're on. Okay. Well, that's good to know. It seems that they're reducing, and that's wonderful if they are starting to reduce, because committees or teams that aren't moving the ball forward in literacy or math are really a waste of teachers' time. Now, here is one that I always said, okay, you can keep that one, and that's the Sunshine Committee. I never led the Sunshine Committee because, I was a firm, grumpy principal, but I always made sure that there was a Sunshine Committee going on. Okay, the next one. Next slide, Angie.
Trying.
It's not moving.
Nope. Hold on. There.
Okay, so in order to be successful, we believe that schools must have 2 types of committees or teams. And that it's the data team meeting, which is a grade level team, or a PLC, done correctly, and a school leadership team. Now, I think that you really shouldn't have more than 3 or 4, because if you have those 2 teams, you get most of the work done that you need to get done, along with the Sunshine Committee, of course, which is the social committee. Okay, so why those teams? So the school or building leadership team is often called the guiding coalition. And that's for shared leadership. And we're going to talk more about that in just a minute. And the other true data team is a data team where we analyze data and look to see how our students are doing, and then talk about the instructional strategies associated with what we need to do to move students or what's working for moving students. We see those as the same as a PLC. Go ahead, Angie. So let's talk about the school leadership team a little bit. So here's DeFore, creator of the school or a PLC, says this: no one person will have the energy, expertise, and influence to lead a complex change process until it becomes anchored in the organization's culture without first gaining the support of key staff members. I like to say it this way: we want science of reading in the carpet We've got to get rid of that balanced literacy. It shouldn't be in the carpet. And so, and by in the carpet, I mean that it's just ground in. Our thoughts are that literacy gets taught this way. Well, if we're not teaching literacy correct, then we need to make sure that we have everybody, not everybody, but a key constituency in the leadership team that goes back and communicates what it is we're doing. Go ahead, Angie. So we talked about no one person has all of the answers all of the time. But another quality characteristic of a school leadership team is it allows for transparency. There's open dialogue regarding decision making. The principal isn't having to make all of the decisions. I will tell you, it also creates teacher leaders. I know on my leadership team, many of the members became principals after me, and I know that's true for Angie's building leadership team too. It creates an investment of what it is that we're doing. What are our goals by grade levels? And people can see it when it's transparent and open, and we're discussing how we're doing. And it creates an interdependency. If we really believe that 95% of our kids can be at grade level, then I got to trust my fellow teacher across the hall or down the hall, or my special ed teacher, or any other person in the building, because it does take a village to raise reading achievement. Go ahead, Angie. So, the other big thing, the other big idea that we're going to talk about is trust. And trust is the bedrock of that collaboration. We just talked a bit about in order to get all students reading at grade level, then we have to have an interdependence on one another in order to make sure that we're getting the job done. When I release my student to go receive reading intervention, I've got to know that that student is going to get the best reading intervention they possibly could. And of course, I'm never going to release a student to go get their intervention during whole group time. I just have to add that. Trustworthy leaders, on top of that, form the heart of a productive school. There is some research that says that if a principal is trustworthy, the staff will follow them anywhere. And I don't mean anywhere, but I mean that if they trust the principal, they will say, okay, then we'll do that change. We'll do the change that you're telling us to do. And there are, if you're familiar with Trust Matters, excellent book. If you're not, second edition was out in 2014. It's a great book. Here's the characteristics of a trustworthy leader: benevolence, honesty, openness, reliability and consistency, and competence. I'm not going to, the book outlines what each of those are. I do want to say this: competence isn't knowing everything. Competence is about saying, I mean, perhaps knowing something, but also being very willing to say, I don't know that answer. Let's find that out together. That's a competent leader, one who's willing to solve the problem, but readily say, I'm not sure, but I'll figure it out and I'll get it solved. There's also an interesting little quiz because we can't all be all of those things. As a matter of fact, I will be the first to tell you that I'm not the most benevolent person in the world. So there is, but I needed to work on that as a building principal. So in the book, we provide a little quiz for you to take to see which area of trust are you the best in, and what are some things that you can do to improve in the area others that you might not be so good in. Okay, Angie. So our guests today, or we just talked about, are Regina Exley, at the principal at Lincoln Elementary and Davis School District. Stephanie Barnes, she's the instructional coach at Lincoln Elementary. And Frank Bellamo, the principal at Fox Elementary and Chippewa Valley School District. Frank is also the author of a children's book called Possum the Fox Knows Just What to Do. It's an excellent book for your elementary children, and it's available on Amazon. Sorry, Frank, I had to give you a plug.
Thank you.
Okay, Angie, next slide.
That was it.
That's it. Okay,
Yeah.
Angie,
Okay.
you're going to take it off or take off and tell us about your. Go ahead. I'm going to
I
keep my
am.
mouth.
Thank you. So I'm going to go back to this slide because I'm going to be talking about this slide. So I will admit, okay, first of all, I need to throw out Patty. You know how much I love to talk about this topic. So I promise you, raise my hand, promise, I'm going to make sure to keep it brief. Because Patty knows we could just talk about this topic all day long. I love this
Both of
topic.
us.
So I will admit that creating a building leadership team was my absolute favorite piece of the work that we did with Schools Cubed. And I think the reason for that was because it was so empowering, not just empowering to my leadership, but also to the staff leadership and the staff growth that happened in our building. So, one of the very first things, if not the first thing, I was trying to remember, it may have been the very first thing that we did with Patty was establish a building leadership team. We took key leaders, we took one from K2, one from 3-5, one to represent special education, and one for intervention. And along with myself, that became our building leadership team. And I grew to love and trust this team and this process so much. So, leaders, please listen up. I cannot imagine leading a building or leading a literacy initiative without a school leadership team. I can't imagine doing the work. It's a ton of work. It's hard work. It's challenging. And I can't imagine doing it without a team of people to lean on and rely on and have to help the leader do that work. So, on the first visit to our school, I'll never forget Patty stopping in the hallway and looking at me and saying, Angie, you can't be the only person in the building with a sense of urgency, because she was saying that I had one. But she said, you can't be the only person. You can't do this work by yourself. And I wrote that down, and I have kept that. I kept that on my desk in my office, and I still have that. And I found that out to be so incredibly true. And as leaders, we can't do this work by ourselves. So by creating this team, a building leadership team, working as our team, and getting better at this, it made this work so structured and so systematic. And once we established the team, which was the team of people responsible for making decisions, guiding the work, leading the work, solving the problems, I realized something. And I remember calling Patty and telling it to her. I am not in this alone. I feel like the biggest weight has been lifted off of me, Patty. This has been such a gift. That's the word I used. It is such a gift to have this team to rely on as we go about this work. I didn't have to do it by myself. And as leaders, we don't have to have all of the answers. Thank goodness, because we don't have all the answers. And we have to have other people to reach out to. And at all times, I called Patty and Jan and all different types of people and asked questions all the time. So I didn't have to solve every problem that came up in the building by myself. But all problems and challenges were taken to the team, and together we worked through all of those. There are 2 points that the guest and I and Patty that we really want to bring out today. And the first one is, as Patty said, teams build trust. And another one is that teams build future leaders. That's what the guest and I are going to be talking about with you today. So the first one, our team did help build trust, and they helped build trust because of the transparency. We were so transparent in every single thing we did, from the agendas to our meeting protocols to the minutes that were released. In the beginning, it was within 24 hours. We got so good at it, so systematic. They were released at the end of the meeting. We'd read them over. The minute the note taker would read over those, make sure this is what we want to go out, and would send before we left the room. Everyone in the building knew about the work that was going on. Everyone had a voice and everyone had input. Another thing that is so important about the transparency is it sends a message to everyone in the building. This is not some secretive group that's doing this secretive work. It's not this group of principal favorites. It's simply a group of building leaders that are coming together as Patty said earlier, for one common goal, and it's literacy for all students. So our meetings then, because of that, took on this idea that they became problem-solving sessions. There was nothing we couldn't do. There was no problem we couldn't solve. If we didn't have the answers, we would reach out and get the answers. But we would solve everything together as a team. And you talk about Patty's work, collective efficacy. We were able to develop that in that team. And by doing that, then our staff members developed trust, not only in me, but in that team and in those team members, because they saw the work that was being produced by the team. So just for a couple seconds, some of the work that we worked on that we were able to do and share and guide the work by doing was completely redoing our master schedule, restructuring the reading blocks, giving guidance to teachers for how to do that, constantly tracking the data and having conversations about it, taking each set of benchmark data and setting goals, holding everyone accountable, holding ourselves accountable as a team, but holding everyone in the building accountable. Each year, we created an instructional calendar and an assessment plan. We got to where by the end of the year, we were sharing that out for the upcoming school year. And all of that work, that's just part of it, but all of that work again was for one common goal, and it was reaching literacy proficiency for every single student in the building. And we would constantly ask ourselves these questions. This was some of the dialogue we had. Are our students learning to read? Are our students making progress? Is our work working? Are our teachers making growth? And if not, we knew that was the work we had to do as a team. The second idea today that I want to address is that building teams build future leaders. And our team was a beautiful example of that, because as we learned more and as we got better and more systematic at our work, something happened in my role as leader. Patty said it would happen, and I remember when it started happening, and I thought, I'm like, it's happening. I was able to release a lot of my work to members of the team. For example, in the very beginning, I was the facilitator. That's a role. And I was the facilitator of the meetings, but in the beginning. And the reason for that is I was working with Patty. I was getting the training on that. But over time, I was able to then release that, and another member of the team became the facilitator. In the very beginning, different members would facilitate maybe a portion of the meeting, something that someone on their team had wanted an idea brought to the building. When we were doing interventions, our intervention rep, Angie, would take over, maybe facilitate a few minutes of the meeting. But eventually, I was able to completely turn over the role of facilitator. Then I was able to turn over the role of creating the agendas. Again, I had done that in the beginning. Guidance from Patty when I was getting that training. I was able to eventually release that to one of our team members who met with me to discuss the ideas that the team members had brought or staff members had brought. She went over that with me. She then went back, created the agenda, and shared it out with staff. Another person took minutes and was fully responsible. We developed enough trust in her. We knew it's going to be at top-notch level. In the beginning, I looked it over. Eventually, she just released it at the end of the meeting. And then finally, at our faculty meetings, now leaders, this is one of the parts that I loved the most. It was team members. It was members of the building leadership team that presented the information from our meetings to the staff. They were the ones sharing the data. They were the ones sharing our decisions. They were the ones talking about the upcoming work that we were going to do. They were sharing the schedules. They were sharing the events on the instructional calendar. And the beauty of that is that it was teachers presenting to teachers. And it wasn't something that it was top down. I was saying we're going to do this. No, it was teachers leading other teachers and saying that. This work, then, what it feels like and what happens, the byproduct is that everyone in the building realizes that this work is being done as a team. It's not something that's being done to them or being thrown at them. It's being done as a team, and we're all in it as a staff together. I remember the feeling I had. It was an actual feeling I had sitting in a meeting when I realized, I get emotional sometimes talking about it, not going to today, but that the building leadership members, team members, had truly taken ownership of that team. It was not something that I was asking them to do or wanting them to do. They were so invested. They had taken ownership of that team. They had become the leaders of the building. And honestly, at that point, I was just a team member, not even a voting one, but I was just another team member. And the perfect example, as I wrap up, the perfect example of the idea that teams like this build future leaders was when it came time for me to leave the building and move on and transition to the role of superintendent in a different district. Guess what? A team member of that team stepped up and took over as building principal, and she's still there today. She's also the one who had been the person facilitating the meetings. I am so proud to say we accomplished so much, and I'm so proud of not only the work we did, the difference they made, the difference that they were able to make and that we made as a team on literacy. Because again, that was the number one goal. That was why we were doing everything we were doing. And I'm even prouder to say that that work continues in that building today. So those are two of the things: build trust and builds future leaders. So at this time, we're going to expand on that now. And I am going to bring our guest in to the conversation. And I'm going to bring in Stephanie, Regina, and Frank. So welcome. Patty, would you like to add something?
Yes, I just wanted to add one thing. Well, I wanted to add a couple things.
Okay, go ahead.
Number one, I remember when you were out sick one day, Angie, and your superintendent was there at your building, and he called and said, well, I'm at Angie's school because she's out sick, but I got to tell you, I'm a little bored. This place is like a well-run machine, and they don't really need me. And that's because number one, you had so many good systems and structures in place,
Yeah.
that everyone knew their role, could collaborate. I mean, it was just the most smooth operating machine. And that's because no one person did all of the work. And I think that that is really important to
Exactly.
report. And I do also remember another time when you called me and said, oh my God, I feel like the weight of the world is finally off of my shoulders, because of your school leadership team. And I remember that feeling with my building leadership team as well. But, oh, I don't have to make all of these decisions anymore. This is a group decision. But before we get to Stephanie and Regina, what I'd like to talk about is often we get, in fact, I've gotten this question in this series, and that is, what do you do with resistant teachers? Teachers who don't want to do this work. And so I have brought in Regina and Stephanie to talk about that whole attitude of how we bring teachers along. Because I've just worked with Regina and Stephanie since the beginning of this year. And I can't tell you the changes that they have made regarding bringing people along. And in my opinion, it's all about trust. So that's what I wanted to say, Angie. Go ahead.
Patty, would you like me to leave up the slide on trust as we talk about
Yeah.
that?
And then
Okay.
after that, we'll go to Frank.
Okay. All right. So, again, thank you, Regina, Stephanie, and Frank. I know it's probably a lot of nerves leading up to this. Patty and I had in the beginning too. So, thank you for giving up your time this morning to be with us. We are going to start with Stephanie. Stephanie is, like Patty said, an instructional coach in her building. And we want to start off with Stephanie talking to us about trust. So, Stephanie, how did you get it to a point in your building where teachers were willing to take coaching, where they trusted you and they were willing to take coaching? How did you do that?
First of all, it's taking a lot of time. I've had to be really patient that even though we have this urgency of change, knowing that it's not going to happen the next day, it's not going to happen overnight. So, what is our just next step? So, I had to change my definition of coaching, that it's not going to be that everyone is involved in the same cycles or in a as long of cycles. It could be touch points. What touch points can I bring that are just going to help them know that I'm a partner and I'm not here in any evaluative space, but we're doing it, like you mentioned earlier, as a team. And so my definition and my, what's worked at other schools, this is my third school. And I've been an all title as a coach. And so being aware of that and knowing the difficulties that we were facing, what worked in the past isn't always going to work for the culture that we had existing here. And so I worked really hard on just focusing on what's the touch points that I can have with these students, with these teachers and with the students, and then what coach do they need, and what, because I still need to bring who they need, someone to help them stay focused and help them to meet their goals. So their goals became my goals. I wrote down their goals and kept that next to me and on my computer and on a sticky note, so that I am aware that it's not about me. It's not about me meeting with my goals of how many teachers I'm, doing cycles with and things like that. It's how are we getting them to feel success, and how are we getting them to meet their goals, and just following through with that. And so it's Patty gives us a lot of credit. We couldn't do what we do without her coming and that support. But yeah, that's kind of just the baby steps we've taken.
You said a quote in in the pre-conversation before this, and I just want to say it and see if you want to expand on it. But you said, I needed to become the coach they needed, not necessarily always what they wanted. Do you want to expand on that? I thought that was brilliant, the way you worded that.
Yeah, sometimes I realize that, what we tend to want is to stay comfortable. And so to know that I needed to be a coach that's going to help, not just be on the sidelines, but be right alongside them in the actual play of being like, I know we hate sports analogies, but that's the way, my sons are football players. So, but to be right alongside them in the classrooms of being like, you can do this. Like, you can do this. Let's take this next step. And they don't like that. That's uncomfortable sometimes. But making sure I follow up and that I'm there as a partner is really like, I need to be aware of what their goals are and making sure they don't stray from that too, because sometimes we often are given so many goals as teachers and educators that trying to just remind them, this is what you need to stay focused and to be successful in your, for what you what goal you want to meet.
I know you also mentioned too that you said it's not a one size fits all. And that's something you've learned in this journey, that it's not. And as you're saying, it's what each individual teacher needs. So, Regina, now we want to bring you in to talk to us a little bit about trust as well. It is critical. We all know that it is critical that leaders build trust. What are some of the key traits about you that you feel have really helped build trust between you and your staff?
Well, I started my career as an 18-year junior high math teacher. So math was my passion. And then at my first school, I took letters right along with my teachers because I wanted to immerse myself in literacy. Then when I came to Title I 3 years ago at Lincoln Elementary, it was a whole new eye-opening experience. And I had a commitment to literacy. My teachers know that I am a junior high math teacher that is 100%, in fact, 110% committed to literacy now. And I do have a firm belief that all students deserve to learn how to read. We have over 30% mobility at our school. And so whether we have our students for 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, it is our job to teach them how to read. And so my teachers know that I am consistent, that I am not going to change the focus, that I have certain non-negotiables that I expect from them, but they know that I will I will provide them all the support that they need. And I'm still learning right alongside of them all the time. And I'm reliable and very transparent. One thing that we've really learned is to, like you said earlier, posting our minutes, letting teachers be a part of the agenda, and then everyone in the building, not just our teachers, but all staff members can see what we're covering in the meetings. So I think all of those things have helped build on the trust in the building.
And of course, whenever we bring in guests, Angie, they don't gloat like they should at all. So now, and Regina and Stephanie do get, I mean, I gloat about them so much that they get embarrassed by it. But I'm going to tell you this. So Regina is a math person. And I remember going to her school, and Jody actually used to say that as well. I'm not a literacy person, Patty, and I know you're on, Jody. So, but you know what? These people say, hey, I'll learn with you. I'll learn with you. Not sure of that answer, but I'll learn with you. And oh my gosh, that goes miles with the staff, because guess what? When you're switching from a balanced literacy approach to a structured literacy approach, teachers don't know either. And so when you say right along with them, I don't know, let's find this out together, then holy cow, just think how much more comfortable that staff feels. Here's the other thing that Regina doesn't gloat about herself. She is so consistent. In fact, when we were prepping, as you know, Angie, I said, Regina, you're about the most reliable person I know. And she said, no, I'm really the most consistent person. And she's right. If they want to sway or go this way, Regina says, nope, we're going this way. And here's the other thing. I think oftentimes people think that you have to have a big personality to lead a school, because Angie, you and I both have kind of big personalities. However, Regina is the most soft-spoken, determined individual that you might ever meet. And that goes a long way with her staff. So I just had to, and she's so honest. Oh my gosh, so honest. It's just not even funny. So I had to bring those things in, because those are the characteristics that do create a collaborative culture right there.
And I think, and like you said, Regina, like you said, being in every training with the teachers, that I'm going to learn this as well, and being open and honest, and I don't know, that is huge. That can be the complete icebreaker with the staff to build the initial layer of trust, is when they hear the leader say, I don't know. That can be what starts it. Now, I do want to ask you a follow-up question, because I've been told something about you. Patty said it and Stephanie said it, and I think it's huge, and I would love to hear you expand on it. Stephanie said about you, she doesn't like to pivot, and that she stays really focused. And I think that's a key part of the work. So can you expand on that just for a moment? The phrase, she doesn't like to pivot and she stays really focused. Talk to us about that.
I think that the staff know that, again, I have things I'm looking for. I have expectations that I expect to see, and that they know I'm going to come into their class, I'm looking for these things, and I immediately follow up to say, hey, I saw this, it was amazing, and hey, I think you could tweak this a little bit to get even better. And so just the constant, they know what I'm looking for, so I'm very transparent about that, what the focus is, and then the immediate response of what I've seen, and the glows and the grows. And they know. They know now, after a third year, they aren't going to get rid of me. I'm not going to change what I'm looking for. I am here to move us forward.
And so now you've got that, you've been able to develop that perfect balance of when to celebrate like you just said, the glows and the grows. And I also want to praise you for that, because I know that's something that Patty's pointed out. You've known when to celebrate the celebrations and when to celebrate the right things. So at this point, and stay on here, Regina and Stephanie, because we may come back to you. But at this point, we're going to bring Frank in for a few minutes. And Frank, we're going to talk to you to go back about the teams. So we really had them bring out about trust. So my first question for you is, what do you see as the positives to your school leadership team in your building, Frank?
Well, thanks for having me again today.
You're welcome.
I think that, our leadership team draws on the talent from people in various departments in our building. We have representatives from each grade level, special education staff, multilingual learners, our reading interventionist, myself. So it's quite a large group. Some might say it's too big of a group, but I think that it draws on leaders from all areas in our building, and we have representation in all areas, so we can have that ownership. It's a shared leadership. As you guys have said before, that you are not the all-knowing person, and you can't know everything. And myself, as Regina mentioned, she's coming from math. I came from a background of middle school, and I taught 7th grade and 8th grade. So when I came to elementary, it was learning ground up. So for me, it's another way to share in the leadership in the building. We can utilize each other's skills. We can bounce ideas off of each other. And I equate it to a football team where there's coordinators and assistants on a football team. You can't have just a head coach. You have to have other people skilled in different positions that they can use their craft. For us, it's been the systems and structures. Our leadership team holds us accountable with our systems and structures. We can create them together. We can revise them together like we've done with Schools Cubed. And it gives them a voice in the systems and structures that we have in place for our literacy. The ownership is always there with it now. We embrace it as a team. And the more transparent we are, like you guys have mentioned before, the more transparent we are, stakeholders can understand why we have to make the decisions we do as a school. As a leader, you're going to have teachers, you're going to have staff members that don't always agree with a decision, but they understand why you might have made that decision. And they can understand the difficulty involved in some of those, especially when you have that more ownership and you have more transparency with people on a team. So I think those are the positives. It brings accountability. You can have a lot of collective teacher efficacy. You can believe that you have the best team and you're going to build relationships and it's going to be positivity, but that is not going to bring results. You're going to have to look at the accountability. So it's great that we believe that we can do some great things, but we also have to hold each other accountable. And so that leadership team does that. We hold each other accountable. We're accountable with our data, continuously reviewing it together and seeing if we are making an impact. And I think it also fosters continuous improvement. So as that team collaborates together, we're willing to embrace ideas from colleagues and other areas when needed, and knowing that we're not there yet. Continuous goal. We're never going to reach that point of saying that, we're done. All of our students are great. We're done. They're growing. It's a continuous learning for our teachers and for our students. So for us, I think the positives have really been that shared leadership, bringing on the ideas of others, being accountable together, monitoring our systems and structures together, and just taking that more leaders than just one in a building.
Once again, Frank isn't gloating near enough. And he isn't expecting this, but I have to tell you. So here's one of the things that, in fact, I think I have a video of it. But once every 6 weeks, they gather. I mean, they're always looking at data. He's absolutely right. But once every 6 weeks, they have this data analysis by grade level. And Anjali Conrad, who is his instructional coach, who's absolutely wonderful as well. But each grade level comes into Anjali's office, which is a former classroom. And it's got EL teachers in it. It's got special ed teachers. It's got grade level teachers in it. I mean, it's Frank's in there. Anjali is in there. And Anjali has thrown up. She's projected what each kid needs. And there's paraprofessionals in there. So we know what each kid needs. And so they're talking about grouping based on what kids need on those sub skills that we talked about earlier or in one of our earlier sessions. and a para who feels is equally comfortable as a teacher will say, oh, I think I should take that student for intervention. I've worked with him before and blah, blah. I can do this with him. And another, I mean, this is literally how it goes. Another one will say, oh, yes. Oh, here, I think he might. These three kids always thinking about the sub skills because Angela is organized it that way. Oh, I think these three kids will work well in this group, or I'm happy to take this group. I mean, it is the most amazing thing. They're throwing out what the instructional strategies are. They're saying, oh, we're going to use this decodables with this group of students because they love those books. I mean, it is so amazing. And I will tell you that Angelique and Frank don't take the lead role in that. They don't have to. Angelique has thrown up the data, what each kid needs, and these teachers are collaborating over what student should go where. Did I characterize that correctly or describe that, Frank?
No, you did. There's always things you want to say that when you lose track of thought, but no, to see the process now with our leadership team and to see how we're looking at data now, it's night and day from where we started. And this is my 11th year at Fox. And as you said, Angelique has her classroom where she coaches, where we have our data meetings, and it's just amazing to see the difference now. And the ownership, it's not waiting for us at multiple points in the year to say, okay, guys, it's time to look at student data and move kids into different groups. And then when we get to those meetings, talk about, well, Johnny has this going on at home, or this is going on at home, so this is why he's struggling. Now it's us accountable, knowing what we can do together. And you're looking at your data, you see your colleagues' data, they're asking each other questions, and they're not, like Patty said, they're not waiting for us to get started. They're coming to us with things that they've seen in their progress monitoring trackers and asking us questions and letting us know when they think it's time to move a student into a new group. And things are fluid now. So it's night and day. It's really night and day from where we started to where we are now. And now we're not just spinning our wheels, we're actually making some distance.
I cannot tell you how fluid it is, Angie. I walked down the halls at Fox Elementary and had paraprofessionals come up to either Angelique or Frank and say, oh, this kid, da, 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 needs something. What do you, it's amazing. I mean, just the collaboration in that building is absolutely incredible.
You guys
Sounds
mentioned it
beautiful.
before, it's the trust, because you have to have the trust. They're willing to come up to Ange and ask her a question. They're willing to ask me. They're willing to be vulnerable. And when you have people on your team that are willing to be vulnerable, you're going to have results.
But it's because the principal and the instructional coach, just like Regina and Stephanie, are also vulnerable and are able to say, not sure, let's find this out together. And that is, I would say, the key to collaboration.
So Frank, we've talked a lot about trust, but the theme of today is truly collaboration. So my final question I'd like you to address is, how do you feel your leadership team contributes to the collaborative culture of your school? Because goodness knows it exists. So how do you feel that team contributes to that collaborative culture?
And I think with the collaboration, we depend on each other. We're collaborating, we're working together. And in many places, it can be my students, my classroom, and where a teacher shuts the door and they get their work done and they do what they have to do and they have their little community. But, revising the process that we've had now at Fox, now it's our students. It's not just my first grade students, second grade, third grade. It's our whole team in that grade level. It's in our whole school. So now you have teachers willing to work with other teachers, students in that grade level, and they trust each other to do it. We're doing the same practices, the same strategies. We have the same systems all together as one. And I can trust that my kids are going to go into the classroom across the hall and they're going to have the best instruction they possibly can have, because I know my name is on those students, right? I have to own that growth. And our teachers are not afraid to do that anymore. They're not afraid when they're with a para. The paras are not afraid. There's so much trust with it because we're all in it learning together. So I think that just the our piece now, all students and our students. So I think that's really helped the collaborative culture in our school. We also begin to understand where more work is needed as a grade level, and we're able to be vulnerable and able to ask each other for support. And when we continuously meet and we have that data room and we can see the results are all up on the board, and I can see where maybe my students are not making the growth that my colleague, her students are, now we can begin to ask each other questions. We can begin to dig deeper into the data and continue to collaborate more. And it's not, there's not that animosity, it's working together. So I think that's been very helpful as well. And just overall fostering continuous, more leaders in the building. So, but all of it's been done through trust. And you guys have mentioned that multiple times. They trust our coach. They trust that her main goal, as Stephanie said, is not evaluative. It is a coaching role, and is to be there to support and give those teachers everything they need to be successful so that those students are successful. And my role, although evaluation is one part of it, there's coaching, there is giving people what they need to be successful, and that's learning right alongside with them in that classroom in any kind of professional development we receive. So I think the whole process for us, the leadership team, the community we've built has really helped us, and we've gone very far, but we have a long way to go. So I think it's going to be a continuous improvement effort for us at Fox.
It is continuous work. And I love the systematic part of it, but it's continuous improvement, always with the goal of improving student literacy and getting to the goal of literacy for all. And we've all kind of touched upon it, but I just want to stress again, we've all said meeting in that room together, and you guys have touched upon it in the data room. Our meetings were in the data room. It helps hold everyone accountable because, man, when you're looking at the data, we had our dot cards and all of our data all around us when we had those building leadership team meetings, and there was no escaping it. But like you said, it was our data. It wasn't, well, that's third grade, that's fourth. It was all of ours. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to bring us all back together. Patty, I don't know if you've had a chance to kind of look in the chat box. Is there any question that you would like?
There
What?
isn't any, there are no questions to this point, but I would love to answer some. And what I really want to point out, again, is that we've had lots of questions about how do you bring along reluctant teachers?
Yes.
And this is the group to ask it to. If anyone thinks that they might have reluctant teachers, how to do it. These people are the experts.
Let's ask Regina quickly.
What was
Regina, can we ask Regina quickly?
100%.
Yeah. Regina, what do you do? How do you bring along those reluctant teachers? We've all been there, so how do you do it?
I think it is by maybe not giving the reluctant ones all the attention that they want, giving the attention to the teachers that are on board. And it's kind of like you do with your students. You celebrate success of students or the students that are behaving. What are the other ones going to do? They're going to want to have success too. And so I think it's taking one small win at a time and celebrating it. Sometimes just Stephanie and I saying, oh my gosh, you finally heard from this person. That's a win. So it doesn't have to be a huge win, but enjoying and celebrating every small win along the way. And I think the more the resistors see the support that they're getting and the fact that it's really helping, then they're going to want to get on board too. And it's being patient because aren't going to change everything overnight. And so, from my first year at Lincoln to my third year at Lincoln, there has been change. And so it might not be monumental, it might not be exponential, but it's change that's happening over time.
And we do have to be patient. I'm glad you pointed that out. I had a teacher who was very resistant and became one of the guiding leaders. She became so invested and loved it, and then was even, coaching other teachers. So, Patty, did you start to say something there?
Yes, there was a question, and it's an excellent question, and I think we have to be honest about it. And the question is, did any teacher transfer
Yes.
from your building or retire because they disagreed with the program. And I would
Saw
say,
that from Jacqueline. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted
go ahead.
us to address that. Go ahead.
Well, yes. I mean, I think, yes, I've had that happen and it's okay. And we can't make everybody happy. Some people want to stay in a balanced literacy world. And okay, if they can find that school, they should go on because and we can't feel bad about that as principals. We need people in the bus that agree with the direction that the bus is going. So, yep, we do certainly get some of that every single year when a school starts out. Go ahead, Angie. What were you going to say?
And I had that. I had that
Yes.
happen. I did. People transfer, leave, go to different districts, or retire. And I actually had someone say to me, and in all honesty, I appreciated their honesty, but they said, I see the direction that we're going. And I see that you're not going to change, and it's not going to back down, and you're not going to let up. And I thought, well, these are all good things, but and the person said, I can't do the work, but I see the bus going,
Yep.
and I'm just going to make the choice,
Yes. And I know
to do
that.
something else. And I respected that because
Yep.
I'm like, you're right. This is where we're going. We're headed
Yep.
toward the 95 and the bus is moving and it's not stopping. So,
Yep. And I know Frank's had that as well. And Regina, did you want to say something too?
Because that was yours.
Oh, I was
It was
just
Stephanie.
Yeah, I was just gonna say when it comes to coaching as well, we've created a norm in all meetings and committees going back to our teams that celebrations come first in any agenda.
Yes.
And teachers, it went from crickets in the first couple meetings to celebrating even that, you know what, I didn't break down and cry yesterday. Like we've had teachers that were like, I have to just celebrate that I made it through this week, and even that was like, okay, but then we dug deeper as leaders to be like, tell us one thing that helped you get through, so it's
Yep.
become norm in coaching. I have a sticky note in my office that when I have teachers come in and they're like, oh, can I tell you how much I hate this program, or I hate this or hate this, I hold up my sticky note and it says celebrate first. What's something that's a win first? And then let's talk about, okay, one last thing. And that's really helped to get teachers to realize we're all in it together.
And it was interesting because just yesterday, I had second grade teachers that asked me to come into their classroom for their culminating activity with CKLA. They were celebrating their students' insect books and I'm going to post them on Facebook this weekend. And then I ate crickets. I ate crickets in another classroom. They were chocolate covered. You couldn't even tell. So, but it was just the excitement of the kids as they're building on their literacy was just phenomenal.
Yes. Frank,
So-
anything you'd like to add?
No, it's you guys really hit the nail on the head with talking about bringing people along. A lot of times it's just those that they're afraid. They're afraid of change.
Yes.
They're afraid of what they don't know. They're afraid to fail, and you just have to work with them, work through it with them, and be willing to learn alongside with them. And there's only so much you can do for that, right? You can be patient, you can be kind, you can be benevolent, you can be open and honest with them, but it comes to a point where they have to want to be on that bus. And if they don't want to be on that bus, that's okay. That's okay, but why you're in it. You're in it for the right reasons. You're in it for the kids. And that's why we do everything we do, every decision we make. So majority will join, but some won't.
Yep. Yep.
I did want to add something that I shared with you this week. And it slipped my mind, and it just came up with something that Regina and Frank said. So in some of the work I'm doing with the school right now, it had come out from an excellent teacher, but in a meeting, she asked, because this additional coaching and like my consulting and being there to work with teachers, they're like, what did we do wrong that you brought in this consulting person? And I heard that asked of me, like when we were bringing in Patty and everything, like, wait a minute, are we so bad that you're doing that? And, and why are we doing that? And we really then saw the tide turn. And then now by the end of the week, people were asking for feedback and there were resistant teachers. We weren't going to even give it. We were mainly going to do celebrations and praise. But then they stopped. No, they wanted feedback. And so then then we had our true celebration that there was a staff member who had been a little more resistant. And I think it was from fear, as Frank mentioned, that we have to be patient, as Regina and Stephanie pointed out. And then she was the one who said at the end of the week, when will you be back? I want more. When will you be back? I want more coaching. When will you be back in my room? And looked at the instructional coach in the building who does a phenomenal job. She's on here and she does a phenomenal job. And she's like, I want more. I want more. And it doesn't happen overnight, but once they do build that trust, those things do start to emerge.
100%. And we've come to the end of our time.
We have.
Yes.
I need to say that our book winner this week is, and I hope I pronounced her name right, Amy Worden or Worden. So Amy, if you will please add your address in there for the chat box for me, then I will send that to you. Congratulations, Amy. Thank you all so much for joining us. As Patty said earlier, the book had to be, there was a reprint. It is back. It is out. It is available through Solution Tree. They are shipping out the books now. People are receiving them. And so that is great news. And they're also available for Amazon. It will be like 2 weeks then or week and a half, I guess, before you get that. So thanks to everybody.
Yes. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Karen. Saw your names. Appreciate you being on. Jan, as always, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Dawn.
Dr. Jan Hasbrook, thank you. Oh, thank you, Haley. So glad you joined us again. Oh my goodness. I don't see Amy. Did anyone catch Amy's?
She's still on,
Okay.
but I don't see her address in there.
If not, we'll have an email that I can reach out to her.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. Patty, did you stop recording?
Oh, nope.
Oh, I need to add